listeners. Welcome to the Communicate Influence podcast. This is Sheila, your host for this episode. And first, a word from our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by Kyrie.fm. That's KYRIE.fm. Kyrie helps podcasters build communities around their podcasts. If you're a podcaster who wants to grow and engage your listeners, Kyrie is for you. Kyrie automatically creates discussions for your listeners as soon as you create a new episode. It also provides you with detailed insights on how your community is growing. It's free while in beta, so go to Kyrie.fm/communicate to learn more. And if, like Kyrie, you're interested in sponsoring an episode of the Communicate Influence podcast, head over to our website, communicateinfluence.com, and click on the sponsorship link in the top menu. So in this week's episode, we finish our series of in-depth conversations with Reputation Manager Fiona Fenwick. This time we're looking at how to become an influential communicator. Fiona uses parts of a book, Stand Out and Step Up, a Reputation Toolkit for Life, to explore this topic. She identifies the two fundamentals of building a strong and lasting reputation: trust and self-awareness. And with those in place, you're positioned to be an influential communicator. Let's go straight to the episode and learn more. On this episode of the Communicate Influence podcast, we're going to talk about a book written by my guest, Fiona Fenwick. It's called Stand Out and Step Up, a Reputation Toolkit for Life. Now, I know lots of listeners are very busy, and the thought of reading a book, it's a bit off-putting at times, and you'd rather just listen to a podcast. But this book is a slim volume, and that doesn't mean that it's lightweight. It's a pick-up, put-down book, and it's based on years of experience by the author, Fiona. And she's with us today, and we're going to talk about this book on reputation management, Stand Out and Step Up. Welcome, Fiona.
Oh, it's so great to talk to you, Sheila. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Now, let's jump into your book, Stand Out and Step Up, a Reputation Toolkit for Life. I would imagine that a lot of it is based on your experience, but tell us about the book, why you wrote it, what readers can get out of it.
Well, the book came about, Sheila, after quite a significant, lengthy career in that whole communications, reputation, PR space. But more than that, I found myself, when I was public speaking about reputation, when I was meeting with people, having conversations with them, the conversation would always come back to some commonality, which was how people were not achieving the success that they wanted, or that they felt there was just something untapped within them that they just weren't really aware of, but they felt there was something more, but just couldn't quite pin it down. And so when I was doing my talks or meeting with people, they would say to me, is there something, have you written something down? And I hadn't. I mean, I'd never even contemplated a book until somebody said that to me. And I thought, you know what, I wonder if I could capture that whole essence of, if I'm having a coffee meeting with somebody and they raise a topic, I can't help but immediately go into coaching or mentoring mode. And when I see little light bulbs kind of going off in the eyes, it fills me with joy. They walk away with, hugely grateful, which fills my heart. And I think, this is working. There's something working here. So if I could actually distill that down, I can't have coffee with everybody and I can't public speak in front of everybody, but maybe if I could put in a book, capture some of those elements that gives people the tools to allow them to be the best they could be, then surely that would be a great thing to do. So that, and again, best laid plans, easier said than done. So that's what I started on the quest, I call it a quest, of writing the book. So basically it's in 3 sections. There's personal brand, reputation, and influence, which I think are the 3 core areas that underpin success in life, be it professional or personal.
That's great, Fiona. You basically, what an outstanding thing to do, to realize that you're having such a positive influence on people. you're able to write what you want to share, all the knowledge you've gained, the passion that you have, and put it into a book. What was it like actually putting that into a book, though? Because I know that public speaking is so different from, writing and knowing that your audience is a reader as opposed to someone who's listening. What was that experience like to put it into a book?
It was quite an interesting and for interesting read challenging situation, but I did try and make it very much like I was having a conversation with you. So readers of the book will very much feel that we are having a conversation. And the book is littered with very straightforward exercises to tease out of the reader and get them thinking about who they are and how they want to be in the world and what potential they have. And are others seeing that, or are they, performing a task to the best of their ability, but in isolation, so people don't realize what they're doing. And it addresses that whole introvert extrovert piece as well, because, personal brand and having a good, strong reputation and being influential are not necessarily the domains of the extrovert, even though we can often see that. They're just as likely to be the domain of the introvert as well. I mean, I'm an introvert. And when I say that to people, they recoil and it challenges them, because we have a perception that introverts are kind of like sitting with an anorak in a corner and not speaking to anybody. And the extroverts are kind of all flamboyant and on show, and they can talk beautifully, and they expunge, and they just do all these amazing things. And yes, some do, and some wear anoraks if they're introverts, but there's this whole spectrum, and we're all someplace on this spectrum, right? And that's what I embrace, is that I don't like labeling people. It's understanding who you are, and no one's going to do that for you. So the book is there to help you understand that. So it can be read by anyone. I really encourage young people to read it, because they've got their entire career ahead of them and life ahead of them. But I equally encourage anyone who's at a point in their life, I encourage anyone to read it, because it's not just something that fixes a problem. It's not there to fix a problem. It's there to allow you the luxury to really look and concentrate on yourself. How many times do we actually really sit down and look at ourselves and how we fit into our worlds? We're bombarded with messages to be better and be a better you in 2020 and do this and do that. And it's like, I am just over all that information on how to be a better you, in terms of, it just feels inauthentic to me. What I want people to do is understand who they are, and then get the recognition for that and demonstrate that in an authentic way that's full of integrity. That's how they will be successful. And that excites me. So writing the book, when I got into that frame of mind, actually it just poured out. And actually it was deciding what to keep in became the issue.
And I mean, as we touched on in the last episode of our time together, one of the important things is that someone, individuals, people working in PR and marketing, they need to be or develop a sense of self-awareness and know who they are. That's one of the key steps to having a good reputation and understanding what a good reputation is and managing it. So that's the great thing about your book, isn't it? As you said, you have exercises in there that help people with this.
That's right. And the exercises are there. They're not there to necessarily just shine a light on where you feel you might be deficient or what you need to learn more of. It's more about understanding who you are. Where's your natural place? Where are the things that you maybe that may be misinterpreted by others? In the space of that whole communicator, PR, marketing, you have almost got to be the conduit. So you need to be very self-aware, not just of yourself, but be aware of others as well, because I see you as being the kind of the person who is sometimes the referee, the umpire, the person that's pulling out all the messages to get some commonality And if you are inside the room, to really understand what those issues are and being nimble about how you can be clear at pulling together views that are sometimes quite disparate. So you're almost a little bit of as I say, an umpire pulling together all these thoughts, but you have to have the respect to do that. And you have to have the voice in the room to do that. Now, you might be shouted down by the loudest extrovert in that particular room, but you also have to look at the quieter person in the room to make sure that there's nothing being left unsaid. So I see the role of us all as communicators is to be really clear on who we are and be seen and respected for that. But then I think we can use that self-awareness to do perhaps a bit of a better job than perhaps other people can at seeing a lot of viewpoints. And that's what, in my experience, makes a good communicator. Somebody who gathers every viewpoint around, no matter where it's coming from and how hard it is sometimes to get it out, and then work out what the right way forward is from that.
So important skills there. Those things, aspects of your book that you touch on?
Yeah, absolutely. That whole piece of understanding yourself and then extrapolating that and applying to others. Focus on that in the book, because it is really important that you understand where you fit and where the rest of your colleagues or your stakeholders or your audience or your consumers or customers or clients, where they all fit as well. It's not enough in life just to say, this is my path and I'm going to beat it. It's about understanding how that might be seen by others. Because at the end of the day, as a communicator, what's the one thing you want? You want your message to be received in the best possible way. That's the bottom line. That's what we all want. We can pad it up and we can, do all manner of things, but that's what a communicator's job is. So to make sure that you are delivering that message in the best way possible to your audience, no matter what medium you're using, because we put a lot of effort into, if we're going to place an ad campaign, are we going to do it on social media? Are we going to do it on mainstream media? Where is it going to go? Or print? Or what are we going to do? So therefore, when you're communicating a message, right, don't you put as much care into the people who are going to receive that message? If you do, that's how you grow your influence. Because influencers are not just people who just say one thing and expect everyone to just accept that that's it. There are a few influencers who we could draw upon in history that did just that, but it didn't end that well for them. If you want to be a successful influencer, you want to be really sure that the message you're delivering is hitting all bases, because you don't know what lenses that your audience is seeing things through. So you've got to be incredibly skilled in comms. And I think it's sometimes it's something that can be learnt in terms of, an actual skill in actual learning or training. But I think a lot of it can be that you will get from being mentored or for watching people who are successful in that space. So I think a lot of it can be from learning and from experience.
Now, one of the things that you touch on briefly in your book is what happens when there's a reputation fail. Can you explore that a little bit? If someone makes a misstep, whether innocently or they deliberately do something wrong and then they regret it and realize that they shouldn't have said or done what they did. How can people repair their reputation?
Well, it's funny because you can actually use the same advice in any situation. It could be something over the water cooler at work. It could be something in the public forum. It could be something international. If you stuff up, and let's face it, we all, again, inherently have the ability as human beings to stuff up, right? Now, what's the normal thing? Take it back to the playground. For young children, you're in the playground and somebody, does something that is wrong or whatever. What's the first thing that we actually encourage them to do? We encourage them to make it right? We encourage them to apologize if that's necessary, to explain the error of their ways, to explain at the very simplest level to make it right? So take that forward to a work situation, or, say there's a situation, you're in a project meeting or you're advising somebody or whatever, and you do or say something that, in hindsight, you think that just wasn't appropriate. That wasn't right. Now, you could just ignore it and carry on your merry way, or you actually do something about it. So you've got two options there, right? So if you carry on your merry way and don't do anything about it, those others who are subject to that behavior, that becomes part of the picture that they paint of you. Okay, that becomes part of you. All right. So you can take one path, and that is to do nothing. And therefore, others will start building a picture of you based on that behavior. Alternatively, you could think to yourself, that wasn't me. I was having a bad day. I'm going through a bad time. Somebody provoked me. Whatever reason you have going on in your mind, but you address it. So you either go back into that meeting or the next meeting that's held with the same people that are there and say, I just want to explain, last time I may have behaved in a way that really isn't, something I'm proud of. There are situations, I'm not going to make excuses for it. It was inappropriate and I apologize, and I hope you accept that. Now, if I asked you to judge me on either of those situations, which is the one that you're going to judge as being the one that you would actually appreciate, respect me, hold me in higher regard for? Now, I think it's
of course, a gracious apology.
Absolutely. But it has to be authentic. If I went into that meeting, I just went, sorry. Yeah, I behaved badly. Sorry. Yeah, really mean it. Sorry. And you go, you don't mean that at all. So there's a lot to it. And what it is authenticity, right? You build trust that way. In fact, to be honest, I'd almost put a bet that if you went into that room of people and you did exactly as I've just outlined just now, not only would they feel warm towards you and accept your apology, they probably would feel more about you. They'd probably say, you know what? I didn't think that much. I didn't, now I know a little bit more about you. Now I know that you are trustworthy. Now I know that you are self-aware, and you build your reputation. So if people transgress or make a mistake, you can often enhance your reputation. Now, I wouldn't encourage it as a brand technique that you go around and stuff up just so you can apologize and be respected more at the end of it. There's obviously easier ways of doing it, but I have seen organizations who have hit major crises, big problems with reputation, who have done exactly that. They have done Reputation 101. They have apologized. They've done all the right actions, but they have apologized. And because they've done it in the right way, i.e. authentically and with integrity, that they have not only brought people back on board with them, but they've actually taken them beyond that and enhanced their reputation as a result. So there is a 101 there, but it's not as simple as just saying, oh, I need to apologize, and seeing that in one dimension. There's got to be a lot more to it. So yes, there are techniques, and I do outline them in the book, but I always underpin that by saying it's not just about doing the thing. You have to do it with absolute integrity and authenticity, because people are not stupid. A lot of them could be possibly deemed that way, but they're not. We all have what do they call it? The BS sniffometer, that we can suss out if somebody is trying to be what they're not. And, I would urge people not to play in that space, because they will end up in a very bad position. However, if you do transgress, if there are problems, then own them. It's like everything else, going back to the playground, own your behavior, own what's happened, make it better.
Mm-hmm. And I think that people have pretty well developed gut instincts as well when it comes to, whether or not someone, a colleague or a client contact is trustworthy and means their apology or don't. And, as you mentioned, I think you are in pretty dangerous ground when you're assuming that people are stupid and that you can fool them.
Absolutely.
It's not a very good thing to be doing.
Exactly, Sheila. Trust is absolutely paramount. But the thing with trust, and I say this to people all the time, the thing about trust, it's not about being the person that doesn't steal somebody else's lunch from the work refrigerator or, takes the paper clips from the office. That's not what we're talking about with trust. What we're talking about with trust is people knowing who you are, knowing your behavior, knowing who's going to turn up, but not just because you're telling them, but because they see it in action. So it's one thing somebody saying, I am this, right? It's another thing actually demonstrating it and people being able to draw their own conclusions. So there's a common thread here, because if you get that piece right, if you get that personal brand piece right, that then you walk the walk and you show people and demonstrate who you are, what you can do, the reputation comes on the back of that second part of the book, which is all about how your wider audience can see you. And then the third part of the book is influence. What influence do you want to have? Because influence is a much wider piece. You can be influential in a massive space, but it's all based on how other people think of you, and what they think of you should be based on an authentic personal brand. So the three elements of the book actually build on each other and basically move towards that whole piece of saying, have you got it in place for you? What's missing? What are you not demonstrating enough of? And what do you actually want? Because, not everybody, we don't all want the same things. One person's measure of success is very different from another. One person, it might be global world domination. Somebody else, it might just be to have a good, respectful life within their organization, and they don't particularly care if people outside know what they're doing, and that's fine. There's no roadmap that says this is the way it has to be for you. But whatever way it is for you, make sure it's the best for you, because that's the way that you're going to get true success for yourself.
And you talked about influence there, and that, in fact, is one of the things that I really appreciate about your book, the connection between reputation, building a good reputation, and influence. Because today we live in the age of people wanting to, self-appoint themselves as influencers on Instagram or various other platforms. And, you sometimes think, why are you an influencer? I know nothing about you. Or why do you proclaim that you're an influencer? What is your reputation? So for people who do want to influence in a positive way in their work environment, in their business, it's laid out for them in your book.
It is, Sheila. And as you say, it's got a bit muddied over the last few years. I mean, social media, for all its wonderful side, I think it's great if you go with a very healthy dose of skepticism. I think that's fine. My worry is that not everybody does that. And again, you mentioned that whole busyness piece before, that in a world that you are completely surrounded by information sources firing at you from all sides, that we tend perhaps in general not to look as deep as perhaps we could into certain things. So, for example, on Instagram, you've got people who have, 1 million followers. I was, listening to Jennifer Aniston speaking the other day, and she was saying how she broke the internet when she actually went on Instagram, literally because too many people were trying to follow her at the one time. And you think, at the end of the day, if you were trying to explain this to somebody from another planet and said, here's somebody who learns some lines, who is very aesthetically pleasing. And I love Jennifer, I love her to bits. But at the end of the day, is an entertainer, could have this massive influence. And if she turned around and said something political, that could actually influence people either to change their views, or they would think you were crazy. They would think you were absolutely crazy. But that's the world we live in. So a healthy dose of cynicism and sensibility is a very good thing. But sadly, as I say, a lot of people perhaps don't have those, and a lot of people are too busy to look very deeply. Therefore, a lot of people are influenced without them even thinking about a certain thing. And that whole sound echo piece that we talked about in the last interview, that whole, we follow people we like, we listen to views we like, therefore we're not seeing as much challenge out there to our own views. Is that necessarily a healthy thing? So, but influence that I talk about in my book is how you can grow authentically and influence based on what you want to do. Now, we all know that you can buy followers, that you can do certain things. Does that honestly go on? Yes, it does. And so, therefore, I'd hate to think that just because somebody's got a lot of followers or likes on Facebook or whatever, that I'm necessarily going to listen to what they say more than seek other forms of information. But I like to say that, but I know that we're all influenced all the time. So, and I think we could get overwhelmed by trying to sift through it all the time. So I think there is no answer to it. It's going to get, I think, considerably worse over the next few years in terms of the bombardment of information. And from a communicator's point of view, that's a whole new ballgame, because how do you manage all of that when people are getting weary of information sources, and that is the way that you are trying to convey your messages? Are we all going to get just so weary and so busy that we just don't want to take on board anything, and we basically switch off to to all these sources? And if we do, what does that mean for communicators who are trying to get a message out? So I have a few concerns about all of that, but when I talk about influence in the book, it's about how you grow that yourself, how you look for it in others, why you need it, if you want it. You've got to work out all of these things first. It's not just a matter of waking up one morning saying, I want to be influential. It's based on a whole lot of factors. And there's I think I actually in the book, I've got my influence star in there that points to certain areas that if you have all of these different things, chances are you are influential. So it's a nice way of working through that if that's indeed something you want. But let's face it, Sheila, we all influence, if you have children, if you have colleagues, if you have family, if you have, any sense of community, we all influence and are influenced. But how you use that for your own success within your career is what I talk about within the book.
Let's talk about one of the things that we touched on in the introduction. We've talked about what life is like online, and the amount of content and messaging out there. And we often come across too long don't read, too long didn't read. And the great thing about your book is that it's very much pick up and put down, that, it's very meaty. The information is really meaningful and is based on so much experience. You have the examples and the exercises. But talk a little bit, Fiona, about, how someone can use the book quickly, and they don't necessarily have to, sit down and read the whole book in one go.
Absolutely, Sheila. You don't have to read the book in one go. I deliberately called it a Reputation Toolkit for Life. I'll just explain what that means to me and why I said that. It is a toolkit. At various times of your life, there are almost like wake-up calls. It might be if you're going for a new job. It might be if you're getting a bit weary of the role you're doing. It might be if you're just having a bit of a crisis yourself about whether you are influencing people or what people think of you. You can delve into it at any time and actually pick up. And it might just be even a paragraph, but hopefully it would be enough. It would be almost like, you and me having a phone call and me saying some really positive things to you that you go away and think about and are able to adapt to your own personal situation. So a lot of it's a little bit like pep talk. A lot of it is based on real life stories to show where I didn't do that and I didn't have somebody to give me that pep talk. Some of it is just getting back in touch with your values. If you feel like sometimes the world just doesn't seem to be going the way you want, or your job doesn't, or something just doesn't feel right, sometimes getting back in touch with your values. And there's a very, very straightforward exercise on values in there that just allows you to go and look at your life and say, wow, I have gone really quite a long way from where my core values are. Maybe that's why I'm feeling not so great about life right now. There's things in there talking about your behavioral style, to what to recognize in other people. So if you're feeling that you're not quite on the same wavelength, we say that sometimes, why that's the case and how you can work that through. So it's done in such a way that you can pick it up and put it down. I would hate to think that it becomes a book that basically sits there and people tick the box saying, right, I've done Reputation because I've bought the book. That would really make me sad. It's there to interact with, it's there to share, it's there to scribble on. It's not there to be put in a reference library and never touched again. It's there to be in a place on your desk that sometimes if you just feel things aren't firing right and you just need that little bit of something, then you pick it up. It's also got loads of quotes that resonate with me, because I'm a kind of person that just sometimes it takes a quote, a really good quote, to actually make me feel good. Funnily enough, though, I saw the other day something that says, I really don't need to take advice from a cushion, which I really love, because there's a lot of times that, we're again bombarded with quotes and self-help and, this would make us better and stuff. You got to filter through all of that and find something that suits you. But the book hopefully will keep you focused. It will keep you looking at you. It will let you spend time on you. And we do precious enough of that. But what it won't do is tell you that you're not good enough. What it won't do is tell you that you need to find other ways of being better and changing yourself. What it will do is help you identify the wonderfulness that is you and how you can make that the way you want it to be. So we're not dealing with false promises and magical secrets and things like that. What we're dealing with is something that allows you to work with what you have to be the happiest and most successful that you can be. And frankly, if that does it for one person, I would be just thrilled.
That's so well said, Fiona. And I think it's the first time I've thought about this, but your book, it makes me realize that it's a key part of an individual's quiet, self-reflective time, which sounds like a strange way to describe a book. But, I read so much these days about people who, as you just said, something's not feeling quite right, and yet we're so busy, we don't even have time to sit down and figure out, well, what is it that's out of alignment? And it could be, as you describe, our values aren't quite right, or we've, followed someone else and we're not comfortable with it. And it's like that the many things that make up our sense of integrity are somehow misaligned. And your book helps us discover and find out those things.
Well, don't you think, Sheila? I mean, life honestly is way too short to tie ourselves up in feeling we believe we need to be something that we're not. And authenticity is absolutely core, I believe, to a happy, successful human state. But I also believe, and I think it was Richard Branson that said that no one ever reaches their full potential. And when I've heard that, I remember kind of thinking, gosh, that's a bit of a downer. And then I just thought about it, reframed it very quickly and thought, how exciting is that? You mentioned, I think in our last interview, about the various things that I do in my life, and I have chosen that. I have chosen because all of these different things fill my cup and make me so excited. I love everything that I choose to do. I love the people I work with. I love all of that. I love the challenge of it all, right? And I just feel that whole piece of never reaching potential is for me, such an inspiring thing, because I want to. I mean, I can't see life ever slowing down, and I hope it never does, because I actually purposefully love the way my life is being this way. When I'm about to shuffle off this mortal coil, I actually want there to be something left in the tank. I don't want it to be too much, but I want there to be something thinking, I was just about to do that. Finish, over. I always want there to be something because that's what energizes me. That's what keeps me going and keeps me feeling like this world is a fantastic blessing for us all. And I feel incredibly grateful to be living the life that I am. So if that book in any way can not make you feel bad for not being good enough, but can actually make you realize there's a lot more in the tank that you never even thought possible, then that is a good day. And that's really the essence of why I wrote the book. So yes, it's tied up in that whole business piece of, brand and reputation and influence. But as I said before, all of those things underpin everything we do in our life. There is nothing we do in our life that those things don't have an impact on. And therefore, wouldn't it be great to know that you were aligned? And, as I say, in life, the wheels can come off sometimes, and trauma can come and bad times can come. I wish they're not many for the listeners, but if they do come, we just retap back into it and we see where we are. And there's another piece in the book that's called reinvention. Never be afraid of taking stock of who you are at any moment in your life and going, I'm a very different person than I was 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 50 years ago, 1 year ago, embrace that and say, I'm not going to be something I'm not. My values will probably be very much the same if I look at them, but I'm in a different world. I'm in a different place, space, different people. Never be afraid to reinvent who you are at that moment in time. And what I mean by that, that's not false. That is just having the time to look at yourself and say, at this age, in this space, at this time, this is who I am, and this is how I want to be. This is how I want others to see me, and this is how I'm going to demonstrate that. So never be afraid of that. I think that's one of the most exciting things that we've got from this very exciting journey we call life.
And that's a really important message, and a strong message, isn't it? Because oftentimes you'll find that people are afraid of that their values have changed in a positive way. What they want to do has changed. Maybe they want to go and get a degree or travel or whatever, sit down and write a book, write poetry. And the point is that you embrace those things and not be afraid of that kind of change.
Absolutely, Sheila. And, I say before, we have a very short time on this planet, and therefore, isn't it a shame that if we ever have to spend time being afraid or feeling that, people like me don't do that kind of thing, or, that's for other people. If it's any consolation to listeners, I was one of those people that said, I'm not the kind of person that writes books. That's not me. Other people do that, not me. Why? So I challenge everyone, if you're the kind of person that says that, and we all do, that's other people do that kind of thing, not me, or feeling afraid of not taking that, seriously, by working out who you are and what you want to do, and then stretching that and embracing as much as you can, the value to you and the payback to you will be enormous, not just for yourself, but whoever you're around and your community and your relationships and your family. The benefits are widespread, and also it's a fantastic role modeling for everyone around you as well. So we all have a part to play with that. But as I say, I'm not overdoing it with the book. I actually think I say, it might just change your life, and that's a pretty big statement. It won't, but you might change your life.
Well, it's great that you did that and you changed your perception of yourself and realised that you had so much to share, and you did go ahead and write the book, because, without it, where would we be in terms of managing our reputation? So there's so much to read, and it's a great book. So I highly recommend it.
I really appreciate that, Sheila. It was a lot of fun writing it, and as I say, if it in any way helps anyone unlock anything within them to get more satisfaction from their life, then I am one happy Fiona.
That's great. Now, Fiona, tell us where our listeners who are based globally, where can they find your book?
Well, there's a couple of ways. Amazon is a very easy place for people either to download the book or to order a hard copy. Or you can go through the website, which is 15minutes.co.nz or NZ. So that's 15minutes.co.nz. And you can order the book there, but also find out a little bit more about me, about Reputation, people I've worked with, some stories there. But probably the easiest way I would say that I'm finding for my international readers, which it just thrills me to know that I have people in India reading my book, and people in Holland, and people in Belize.
Cool.
And it just, when I see the stats coming through, it actually gives me a thrill. And if it's a place I've been, I just get such a thrill thinking there's somebody there reading a book of mine. I can't tell you. So I'm a very privileged person to have that feeling.
And you touched on your own website. Where can we find you, Fiona, in addition to your website?
Oh, I'm on most platforms. As I say, LinkedIn is probably my professional platform of choice. I am a lazy tweeter, but I am there. And I also have Facebook page, which is the books page, Stand Out and Step Up.
And what's your Twitter handle?
Is Fiona Fenwick NZ or NZ.
Okay, that's great. It's been delightful talking to you, Fiona. Thanks so much for your time, because I know how busy you are. And we'll look forward to connecting again next year. Who knows, maybe you'll be doing a podcast or another book. I'm sure whatever your plans are, they'll be great and they'll be successful.
Thank you so much, Sheila. You have inspired me as always. I think the platform that you're giving for communicators is second to none, and I am just thrilled to play a very small part in that. So to your listeners, never feel afraid to reach out if you've got any questions, but keep listening to Communicate Influence. It's a wonderful platform.
Oh, thanks, Fiona. I really appreciate that. And we'll speak to you again soon.
Thanks very much, Sheila.